Content warning. This story contains disturbing and violent imagery including dreams of murder, torture, kidnapping, and harm to children. While fictional, listener discretion is advised. I've always considered myself a perfectly normal guy. I work an office job, have some close friends, and keep to myself most of the time. But lately, I've started having extremely vivid, violent dreams that have left me deeply unsettled. Dreams that I fear may come true. It started a few weeks ago with a nightmare about getting into a brutal fistfight with a random guy at a bar. I woke up panting, my knuckles aching from the dream punches I threw. The next night I dreamed I broke into my boss's house and stabbed him to death in his sleep. A few nights later I had a painfully graphic dream where I tied up and tortured a woman I vaguely recognized from my apartment complex. I tried to shrug them off as meaningless bad dreams, but they kept happening, the scenarios becoming more and more gruesome. I was frightened when I started looking forward to the dreams at night. I knew deep down something was very wrong. The final straw came last night when I had the most haunting vision yet. In the dream, I kidnapped a school bus full of children, locked them in an abandoned warehouse, and systematically murdered everyone. I woke up shaking, tears staining my pillow. I could still hear their screams ringing in my ears. What kind of monster dreams things like this and enjoys it? Even though they were just dreams, I felt like I was getting a glimpse of some evil lurking in my subconscious. I became terrified that this was a premonition of what I was going to become, a ruthless serial killer that couldn't control his murderous urges. I decided then and there to turn myself in, before I could harm anyone. I went to the police station first thing in the morning and walked up to the front desk. They looked at me puzzled as I explained I needed to be locked up immediately, even though I hadn't done anything wrong yet. They assumed I was mentally ill or on drugs. But I passionately explained my increasingly violent nightmares, how I was afraid of what I may do. I begged them to put me away before I lost control and my dreams became reality. The officers stared at me warily and asked me to wait while they got the sergeant. After nearly an hour of pleading my case somehow, I finally convinced them to put me in one of the holding cells. They thought it was just for the afternoon to sober up and cool down, but I was determined to stay, if possible. I knew if I went back out into the world with these haunting visions and urges in my head, innocent blood would be spilled. So here I am, writing this from my cold concrete cell. I've been here 2 weeks now, having convinced the police to keep me detained for my own safety. But with each passing night, my dreams grow darker and more vivid. I see the faces of my victims so clearly now. I can even smell the blood. The compassionate sergeant who first listened to me has stopped by a few times, but even he's growing tired of my delusions, as he calls them. They want to release me soon, referring me to therapy and anger management classes. They don't understand what's happening to me. They don't hear the voices that fill my head, whispering to me at all hours. I know these aren't my own thoughts and urges. Some sinister force is slowly taking me over, filling my mind with horrors I can scarcely fathom in my waking hours. When I sleep, it takes hold completely. I'm no longer in control of my depraved dreams. I'm just an observer to the gruesome visions produced by whatever evil presence is festering inside me. I shudder to think what will happen once I walk free again. So I'm writing this note as a warning and a plea for help. I need to remain locked away so I can battle my demons in solitude. If I'm released, I don't know that I will be able to stop the unspeakable acts my dreams foretell. This is not simply a mental breakdown as the doctor claims. This is a fight for my very soul, and possibly the safety of anyone who crosses my path. I'm begging for spiritual help. Does anyone recognize these signs of possession? Can anyone perform an exorcism or somehow cleanse my mind before it's too late? I fear what's growing stronger every day. I hear its wicked voice so clearly now, and feel its sick urges pulsing through my veins. Please believe me and keep me from harming any innocent life once that final thread of my sanity snaps. If I am freed, I know now I will inevitably become the monster lurking in my dreams. I'm out of time and options. Have mercy on my soul and protect me from the evil burrowing inside. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon when I decided to go for a drive and explore the backroads near my town. I had lived there for a few years but hadn't ventured far outside the main part of town. I was curious what I might find if I just headed off in a random direction. After about 15 minutes of driving, the paved road turned to gravel, and the houses became fewer and farther between. I was just thinking I might need to turn around soon when I spotted something a little way up on the right, an old house set back from the road. As I got closer, I could see the house was clearly abandoned. The white paint was peeling off the wood siding in strips. The windows were either boarded up or broken. The wraparound porch sagged in spots. An overgrown dirt driveway led off the road up to the house. Something about the place piqued my curiosity. It looked like it had been a beautiful old farmhouse at one point. I wondered when it was last occupied and who had lived there. Before I could talk myself out of it, I turned up the driveway to take a closer look. I parked near the porch and got out cautiously. I didn't notice any. No trespassing signs that I could see. Up close, the house seemed even more run down. The front door was partly open and hanging crookedly from one hinge. The porch boards groaned under my feet as I stepped up to the door. "Hello? Anyone here?" My voice echoed through the rooms beyond. When no one answered, I pushed the door open wider and went inside. I told myself I'd just take a quick look around and then be on my way. The foyer was dim, with peeling floral wallpaper and scarred hardwood floors. Empty doorways led off into the front rooms. I poked my head into what looked like it had been a formal living room, though it was hard to imagine anyone living here now. Cobwebs and dust covered everything. As I wandered through the first floor, I wondered about who had built this house and lived here. There was an old stone fireplace in the family room, and the kitchen still had the original cabinetry. It seemed like it could be restored into a beautiful historic home if someone had the desire. I made my way carefully up the creaky staircase. Upstairs were several bedrooms branching off a central hallway. One was clearly a child's room, with faded purple wallpaper printed with white flowers. A lonely stuffed bear sat in the corner, coated in years of dust. The master bedroom was large and airy, with a high ceiling. The remains of heavy floral curtains hung lopsidedly over the boarded window. Strangely, the closet door was wide open. Inside, the rod held only empty wire hangers. As I turned away from the closet, something odd caught my eye. Along the back wall was another door that blended into the faded floral wallpaper. I probably never would have noticed it if the door wasn't standing partially ajar. Piqued with curiosity, I walked over and pulled it fully open. A narrow staircase led up into darkness. I stared up uncertainly. The stairs had no railing and looked rather rickety. Part of me thought I should just leave well enough alone. But that persistent curiosity won out again. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. Testing each step carefully, I slowly climbed up into the attic. The air was even thicker and mustier up there. Heat pressed down from the roof. I had to hunch over to avoid hitting my head on the slanted walls. A few pieces of worn antique furniture were scattered around trunks and bookshelves. There wasn't much else. I opened one of the trunks and found it full of yellowed christening gowns and other old baby clothes. They seemed like something you'd keep to pass down through generations of a family. Underneath sat a creepy old porcelain doll, its face cracked and faded. I quickly closed the lid. As I made my way around the other side of the attic, the flashlight beam passed over something that made me stop short. There, on the floor near the top of the stairs, were bloody footprints. The rust-colored footprints led across the floor from the stairs to the far wall. My heartbeat quickened as I stared down at the footprints. This was fresh blood. Someone had been up here, someone injured. They may still be here. I stood frozen, unsure what to do next. I peered into the dark corners of the attic and flashed my light along the walls. There was nowhere for someone to hide. The bloody prints seemed to simply end at the wall. As I crouched down to look at them closer, a loud bang broke the silence. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. It sounded like a door slamming shut somewhere downstairs. Was someone else in the house? Or had the injured person gone down there? I waited, holding my breath, but everything remained silent once again. Still, I knew I should get out of there. Apparently, I wasn't the only curious visitor today. I followed my own dusty footprints back toward the attic stairs, but as I drew near, a loose board suddenly slipped under my foot. I stumbled, trying to catch my balance. My foot went straight through the old floor. I cried out as I felt my ankle twist sharply. Stuck half through the floor, I struggled to pull myself back up. Pain burned through my ankle and up my leg. Frantically, I shone the light around, looking for anything to grab onto. But the floor was clear around me. Twisting around, I tried to boost myself up with my other leg. The boards creaked and sagged under me. I could feel the weak spot spreading. With one last attempt, I tried heaving myself backward. The boards gave way. My stomach dropped as I plunged through the floor. I crashed down onto the hard surface below and the wind rushed out of my lungs. For a moment, the world went black. Then my vision slowly came back into focus, along with the pain. I was on the bedroom floor, surrounded by broken boards and plaster dust. Agonizing pain shot through my leg. Gritting my teeth, I shoved away the debris and looked down at my ankle. It was already swelling up and probably broken. I knew I had to get out of there. Adrenaline flooded my body as I looked around for the door. Dragging myself across the floor, I made it out to the hallway. Using the railing, I managed to pull myself upright. I hopped awkwardly toward the stairs, trying not to put weight on my ankle. It was a slow, painful process. When I finally reached the front door, I nearly cried with relief. But just as I put my hand on the knob, I heard footsteps pounding up the porch. Before I could react, the front door was thrown open. A large, wild-eyed man stood filling the doorway. Shocked, I stumbled back. The man's face was partially hidden by stringy hair, but his eyes glinted with madness. "You're not leaving," he shouted. "I've been waiting too long for some company." He lunged, grabbing my arm in an iron grip. I screamed and twisted away, shoving with my free hand. We struggled, staggering into the wall. He was astonishingly strong. I clawed desperately at his face, my fingers raking down his cheek. With a roar, he flung me down hard. My elbow cracked on the floor, and I yelped in pain. He towered above me, blocking the exit. I scurried backward until I hit the wall. There was nowhere left to go. The man loomed over me, his eyes burning. "Now we'll have some fun," he hissed through yellowed teeth. He reached for me again. Pure animal panic took over. As his hands grabbed at my shoulders, I sank my teeth into the flesh of his arm. He howled in rage, and I tasted blood. His grip loosened just enough for me to wrench away. Ignoring the screaming pain, I stumbled and crawled toward the back of the house. Heavy footsteps pounded after me. I slipped through the first doorway I found and slammed the door behind me just as the man caught up. He grabbed the handle, roaring threats through the door panels. I backed away, looking around wildly. I was in the kitchen. My eyes landed on the door leading out to the sagging back porch. It looked like my only chance. I limped over and flung the door open. Fresh air washed in, along with sunlight. The man was already smashing himself against the kitchen door, making it rattle on its hinges. I hobbled out onto the porch, the boards feeling spongy under my feet. Looking over the railing, I saw it wasn't far to the ground, maybe 8 or 9 feet. With a final crash, the kitchen door burst open behind me. The man rushed out, blood streaming down his arm. His eyes shone with madness. I didn't hesitate. Clutching the railing, I hurled myself over the side. For a moment, I was free-falling through the air. Then I hit the ground on my back, hard enough to knock the wind out of me again. Gasping desperately for breath, I forced myself to roll over and crawl. I could hear the man screaming with rage up on the porch. Terror fueled me as I clawed my way across the weedy ground until I was concealed behind the trees edging the yard. Peeking around the trunk, I saw the man rush down the porch steps. He stood searching the yard and screaming obscenities, gripping his bloody arm. Staying low, I crept through the underbrush until I reached my car. I scrambled up and threw myself inside, locking the doors. As I sped away down the driveway, I saw the man turn and stare after me with wild, unseeing eyes. I drove directly to the emergency room and ended up being treated for a broken ankle, cracked elbow, bruises, and cuts. When I told the police about the abandoned house and the madman inside, they said no one lived there as far as they knew. They went to search the place but reported back finding no one and no fresh blood either other than my own. I don't know who or what was living inside that abandoned farmhouse, but the chill of those wild eyes will haunt me forever. Sometimes I still wake up gasping, feeling rough hands grabbing at me in the dark. That pleasant Saturday drive uncovered an evil I can't begin to understand. But I know others have found that hidden door as well, and not all have escaped to tell the tale. The memories come only in fractured pieces. Blinding headlights veering into our lane, screeching brakes and shattering glass. The sickening sensation of spinning out of control. Then everything went black. I awoke alone on a cold tile floor, my thoughts muddy and my vision blurred. As things slowly came into focus, I strained to make sense of my unfamiliar surroundings. The peeling walls and dusty debris indicated I was in some long-abandoned building. But how did I get here? Shakily I stood, only to collapse against a corroded metal bed frame. My body screamed in pain, caked in blood and bruises. The last coherent thing I could recall was driving home from a concert with my girlfriend Leah and our friend Aiden. Nothing of how I ended up alone in this decrepit place. I called out cautiously, my voice echoing down the shadowy corridors. The scattered wheelchair remains and faded medical charts on the floor indicated this might have once been a hospital or asylum. Uneasily, I limped the halls searching for any exit or signs of life, but I discovered only endless rows of empty rooms, some still containing rusted hospital beds and equipment covered in years of dust. Peeling wallpaper revealed eerie remnants of padded cells beneath. The deeper I explored, the more my anxiety spiked. Where was everyone? Had there been some kind of apocalyptic event or evacuation? I saw no bodies or clues to indicate what had happened here. Turning another corner, I froze. There at the end of the hall stood a small figure bathed in light streaming through broken windows. "Leah!" I cried, hobbling desperately toward the silhouette of my girlfriend. But as I drew closer, it was not Leah, but a dusty, decades-old medical mannequin propped against the wall, its vacant eyes seeming to follow me as I passed. My heart sank, realizing my mind was surely playing tricks, conjuring familiar faces amongst these ghostly ruins. I was alone here still, the fate of Leah and Aiden agonizingly uncertain. Hours passed as I slowly scoured the crumbling hallways, calling their names fruitlessly. But there was never any response, just my own voice echoing back. The absolute silence soon became deafening, pressing in on me from all sides. I began noticing more unsettling human-like shapes looming in the shadows. A nurse's uniform hanging eerily in a locker, a doctor's coat abandoned on a splintered chair. They startled me each time before revealing themselves as just empty garments, not actual people. Night fell, darkness swallowing the already bleak hospital interior. I knew staying put was my best chance of being found, but the thought of spending the night alone in the increasingly creepy building filled me with dread. I settled onto a mattress in one of the least unsettling rooms, fighting back tears and the gnawing ache of loneliness. If Leah was here, we could at least face the long night together. Exhausted, I managed to drift to sleep after hours of fitful tossing. But then the scratching sounds started, tiny skittering and scrabbling in the walls and ceiling around me. Mice or rats, no doubt, but the auditory hallucinations soon warped into imagined human-like fingers, tapping out eerie rhythms across the peeling plaster. I jolted awake and fumbled to turn on my phone light. Blearily checking around the room revealed no signs of intrusion. But when I lay back down, the phantom scratches resumed, growing louder and more urgent, as if directed specifically toward me. Panicked, I stumbled out into the dark hallway but found no refuge, only more unexplained sounds swirling around me as I sank to my knees. Distant muffled crying and whispers floated through the stagnant air. Were they just my own terrified breaths and sobs distorted, or lost souls of this sinister place trying to lure me deeper into madness? I squeezed my eyes shut and waited agonizingly for sunrise, unsure anymore of what was real and what my traumatized mind was conjuring in the dark. When pale light finally crept back into the dreary halls, the ominous sounds retreated, leaving me numb and exhausted. This place seemed to transform at night either by some paranormal force or the power of suggestion paired with isolation. By the next nightfall, I resolved to escape the confinement of those morbid walls before madness fully consumed me. Making my way to the front entrance, I discovered only a rusted padlock, and chains stood between me and potential freedom. As darkness fell, I frantically smashed at the corroded links with a heavy pipe, my blows fueled by desperation. The barricade finally shattered after what felt like hours, releasing me out into the hazy night air. I wanted to run without looking back at the looming abandoned asylum behind me, but something stopped me in my tracks. The distant flickering glow of a fire somewhere deep within the bowels of the building. Had someone else taken up refuge here too? Against all reason, I felt suddenly compelled to follow it. I crept back through those familiar decrepit halls, drawn toward the warm light like a beacon of hope. Turning the last corner, my breath caught in my throat. There in the dingy common room burned a small fire, and huddled around its comforting flames were three familiar faces, Leah, Aiden, and I. My chest swelled at the sight of my lost friends who I had been so worried for. But as I stepped closer, eager to embrace them, my doppelganger and the others didn't react, just stared blankly ahead at the fire dancing before their unblinking eyes. No amount of pleading could rouse them or elicit a response. Numb with despair, I backed slowly away down the hall. But the shadows along the walls now undulated menacingly as if alive. A cacophony of phantom screams and demonic laughter filled the air as I fled for the exit. Fresh air washed over me as I escaped once again from that place of stagnant decay and madness. Out here under the stars, the tangible world felt reassuringly real. But part of me wondered if I had left reality behind days ago after the accident. Perhaps whatever form that firelit room took now was where I truly belonged. But tonight I will continue running, following any path that leads away from that place. The rising sun cuts through the fog in my mind, anchoring me for another day. I can only pray I don't lose the ladder to rationality again when darkness returns. For all I know, the blurred line between madness and reality only leads back to another empty room frozen in time.